Okay, good afternoon. So let's start without wasting any time because we have only 2 hours. So today I'm planning to cover two set of slides like lecture 8 and lecture 9. Uh, so they have been uploaded to so on LMS. So you can, I hope you have downloaded them and ready with the notes. So now we have missed two practical sessions. Actually, one practical session, and then this week practical session. So I will talk about later, right? So before, so remind me to talk about the on this Friday. So usually we have the lecture, the practical session on Friday morning. So this week, whether we are going to have that or not. Right, okay. So let's go through the lecture 8. Here, so we are going to talk about variable scope, right? Variable scope and types of variables that we're using in our, so based on the scope, how variables can be categorized, and then how those different types of variables are working in a program. So that's what we are going to talk. So that's actually this is a small topic. So we can finish it with within less than 1 hour, right? Right. So the types of variables. There are 3 types that I have given here, right? So mainly we have local variables and global variables, right? So variable declares inside a function or a block. So what is a block here? It could be usually a block can be identified with braces. So within a pair of braces, so we have one or multiple lines of code, right? So this is identified as a block. So where do we use blocks? So usually, mainly, so if we take a function, right? In function, so we have the function header like this. So inside this pair of braces, so we have one or multiple lines of code. This is a block. This is a block. Another place that we use block is a loop. Suppose we have a for loop. Again, in most of the cases, we use braces. Right? So inside those braces, so we put a set of instructions, so it's a set of lines. Right? Again, this is a block. So another place could be if block. Or conditional. In conditional statement, suppose we have a condition. And then we can braces, we can define a block of code. So this is a block again. And even in switch case statements, so we can find block. So blocks can be added anywhere. So even without this, we can add a block. Right? So in your code, so if you had a pair of braces, and if you write a set of lines there, so this can be considered as a block. Right? So variable declared inside a function or a block inside a function, the function can be considered as in this case block, right? So basically inside the block, if you declare a function, it is called a local variable. So all the variables we discussed in all my examples, my previous examples, are local variables, right? All the variables that we discussed earlier can be considered as local variables. So then, the variable declared outside all functions, which are called global variables. This is something new. I mean, I haven't given any examples with global variables. So I'll show you some examples today. Okay. Global. Variables declares in the definition of function parameters, which are called formal parameters. So parameters we know, we already know that, right? There are three types of variables: local, we already know that, and global, I haven't given you examples on global, and then parameters, so formal parameters of a function. In our explanation on functions, so I have given you examples. Actually, so it's a different type of, so we can categorize them separately, but again, those formal parameters can also be considered as local variables. Those are local, right? Okay, so let's talk about this local and global later, right? So these are the three types that we have used up to now. Right. So in this example, so I have given, right, like if you declare any variables inside the function, any function, it could be main function or other user-defined functions. So here in inside the main function, two variables are declared, and then those are assigned with values. So this A and B, those variables are local variable. Global variable, this is something new. So global variables are declared outside all the functions. So usually we declare them on top of the program in the area of preprocessor directives. So we have this region where we declare our preprocessor directives. Those are, so we declare variable int G here. This is a global variable. So the parameters, the formal parameters, in this example, we cannot see formal parameters, but basically you know what formal parameters are. Okay. Okay. So now we have a concept called variable scope. Based on that variable scope, we can identify these names of these variables, global or local, based on the scope. So variable scope is a region or area of the program where a defined variable is visible or has power. The variable is not visible, so we cannot ensure that the variable is visible to all the areas of the program, right? Based on that visibility, so we have categorized this, right? So variable has a region. It is visible, or it has its power. Beyond that region, variable is not visible, and from outside it cannot be accessed. Right. This is the most important. Right. The variable is not visible means it cannot be accessed. Right. So these are the rules, right? So based on these rules, you can identify those previously mentioned categories. So global variables are visible to all the parts of the program. Very, very simple idea here, right? So global variables are visible to all the parts of the program. Local variables are only visible to the block of the code where the variable is defined. They cannot be accessed from outside to that block or from other blocks. If a local variable is defined inside a function, it is only visible to the function. If local variable is defined inside a for loop, it is only visible to the for loop block. So wherever the block that we define, that function, that variable, so its scope is limited to that block itself. Right. So then function parameters are only visible to the function. I told you like function parameters or the formal parameters they are also local variables, types of, they are a special case of local variables. So that means they are also visible only to that function. They cannot be accessed outside the function. Right? See, there are three rules here, right? So global variables are visible to all parts of the program. Local variables are only visible to the block of the code where the variable is defined. Function parameters are only visible to the function. They cannot be accessed outside the function. Okay. So these scope rules are for C language, right? If you go to other languages like Java, so next semester you are going to learn object-oriented programming. So most probably with Java. So there, the scope rules are a bit complicated than this. Right, so the program, right? So if I write, so if you can imagine our program as a kingdom or a country, right? So then, so we have different blocks, right? So I mark them as villages or regions. Right? Suppose this is our program. Like now, don't think about the program. So suppose this is a country, right? This is a country, and these are villages. So these circles are villages inside that country, right? So there's a person, in this village. All so there are let's take one example. So let's say Marusira or something. Right. Okay. So this person, so he's the I don't say hero, like he's the thug in this village, right? So Marusira කිව්වහම මේ ගමේ කට්ටිය ඔක්කොම බයයි. හරි. Marusira කියලා කිව්වහම ගමම හොල්ලගෙන ඉන්නේ. Right? So he has his power within this village. So even the infants or like babies know his name. Right? Marusira කිව්වහම ඔක්කොම බයයි. බයෙන්. Right? Then if I go to this village and ask, do you know Marusira? Right? So then actually they ask, who's Marusira? They don't know that person. So his power is only within this region, this area, this village. අල්ලපු ගමට ගිහින් ඇහුවාම මේ චණ්ඩියෙක් නෙවෙයි. ඒ වගේ කට්ටිය ඉන්නවා. සමහරලාට මේ ඉස්කෝලෙත් දැන් ඉන්නේ වගේ සමහරලාට පන්තියේදී චණ්ඩියක්. හැබැයි දැන් අල්ලපු පන්තියේ කනට බයයි. ඒ වගේ. දැන් ඉස්කෝලේ ඇතුලේ චණ්ඩියා. හැබැයි ඉස්කෝලෙන් එළියට බැස්ස ගමන්ම එන්න බයයි. කැම්පස් එකේත් ඒ වගේ. කැම්පස් එකේ ඇතුලේ චණ්ඩියා. හැබැයි ගේට් එකෙන් එළියට ගිය ගමන්ම කවුරුත් ගණන් ගන්නෙත් නැහැ, කවුරුත් දන්නෙත් නැහැ. The local heroes, right? So that's the idea. So this person, this Chandiya or whoever, is only visible. His power is only within this village, in this block. Is not visible to others. And in this village, so there's another person, right? There's another person. Suppose he's having a long hair, right? So his name is Kondera, right? Okay. So if we ask someone from this village, do you know Marusira? So they say, who's Marusira? Right? If we ask someone from this village also, I will name this village as village A and village B. If we ask someone from village B that do you know Marusira? So they would say, we don't know such person. Right? Then we ask, do you know Kondera? Right? So then they say, right? So they say, like, they all know that. Like, they all are scared of that person. Right? So this person, his power is visible, or his power, he's having his power only within village B. If you ask someone from village A, do you know Kondera? So they don't know. They are not scared of that person. Right? So these people, so they are local thugs. So if we take that into our programming paradigm, so then so they are like local variables. they were born in that region, and they are visible only to that. So the variable is declared in that block, and then those are visible only to that block, right? Right. Suppose we have another person, right? Another person. So his name is okay. So Dinusha has suggested name Sotyupali. Okay, right. Sotyupali. So right. Okay. So there are some other suggestions, Kirisumana or whatever. Okay. So you can put your own name, right? So Sotyupali, so he's like, so if we ask from this village, do you know Sotyupali? Like they say, right? If we ask the same question from village B, they also know that person. Ammu avutiyorai, right? So they all know Sotyupali. Like so you can put any name as you like. You can put your name, right? You think that you are a global right? So this person, his power is everywhere. Suppose this is the country, so his power is in all the countries, like sorry, all the villages within this country. So this he is global. Right. හැමෝම දන්නවා. හැමෝම දන්නවා. Right. So this is how it is in the programming context as well, right? So let's let's write a program and see how can be defined variables. Right. Okay. So this program, suppose so we have take and subtract. I can copy them. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Right. So in this program, So if you want, you can declare these on top, but so I'm not going to do that here. Okay, right. So now we have several variables here. We can identify several variables. Int A, this variable, and then int B, A and B variables. And then, so we have another variable here, sum, and another variable here, sum, right? So these variables are local to this function, main function. Right. So main function, so we have A, B, sum. We have several variables. So this is the main function. Right. I'm going to write another function here. Add. Inside add function, so we have another set of variables. Sum and X and Y. So these are parameters. I'm going to put them as well. Right. X, Y. We have another function, subtract. That functions we have X, Y, and then sum. Right. These variables are there. So these variables are local to this function. This variable cannot be seen here. It is not visible to main function. X, Y, those are not visible to main function. Right? If we take add, right? So we have again X and Y. Those X and Y are not the same as X and Y in subtract. These are different. It is like, right? So in our the previous example, suppose, so we have another, so in village C, so this is village D. Suppose we have a person in this village, again he's a thug, right? So his name is, he's having a long hair, so his name is also Konde. Right? Konde, right? Right. The same name as the Konde in B village, right? So then this person, so if we ask someone from village C, right? do you know this person, Kondya, right? So then they say, yeah, we know that. So Udu Ammo Kila, bye. So we know that person. So we are very scared of that person. So that's what they say. Right. So then we ask, okay, so now he is in the jail, isn't it? And so then they say, no, he's probably he's at his usual place, right? Because now we are talking about this code, right? He could be in the jail at the time, but I mean, this person is different from this person. Two people. When we ask from people in village C, so then they refer to this local person, right? When we ask from people in the village B, they refer to this person. ඒ ගමේ කියලා කොණ්ඩයා කියලා කිව්වම ඒ කට්ටිය කියන්නේ අර ඒ ගමේ මිනිස්සයා ගැන. අර C ගමේ ඉන්න මිනිස්සයා ගැන නෙවෙයි. C ගමේ එහෙම එක්කෙනෙක් ඉන්නවා කියලාවත් B කට්ටිය දන්නේ නැහැ. People in the village P, they don't even know that there is a person with the same name in C village. Right? In different, like in independent regions, right? So these, when it comes to a programming block, so those are independent regions. Those are independent regions. So the same variables with the same name can exist within those independent regions. You can have X here as well as X here. Both are not the same, but two different variables. So those variables, so they are having two different locations in memory. Two storage places. They are independent, no conflicts at all, right? So in one village, there could be a person with one name. So another village, there could be a person with the same name. No conflicts at all. Those are independent regions. Right? So here, this XY, so those are this XY and this XY. So those are two different variables. And here we have sum, and then a variable with the same name is there in this function. And then we have a variable sub here. We have another variable with the same name in subtract function. Those are two different variables. Right? So we have sum here. That sum and this sum are two different. Totally independent from each other. Right? Is it clear? So that's the scope, right? So still I'm talking about local. The global variable, you can use a global variable. Suppose I define a variable here. Right, so I'll put it as capital. Right. So this variable is global. Right. So if I print M here, no problem. If I do the same here, that's possible. If I do the same here, that's possible. Right. If I run this program without any problem, without errors, so they will be executed. So here, see, we can print, we can access this variable from anywhere in the program. Right. It is visible to this area, and this area, also into this area. Suppose if we define that somewhere here, yes, now there's a slight problem. It is not visible to this area. So you have to identify before the function, so we have to declare, right? So if we do that here, again, ask that I cannot see that. So if I remove that, then it will work, right? It is not visible to this, but it is visible to this and that. Because before the function, so we have to declare that. Then it becomes global, right? Outside කියලා මේ function වලින් එළිය කොහේ හරි define කරලා බෑ. ඒ function define කරන්න කලින් function එකේ body එක තියෙනවා. ඊට කලින් ඊට උඩින් තියෙන්න ඕනේ variable. Right. Usually, so we do that on top of the functions. So if we define that before this, that's fine. no problem. Right. Usually we declare here at this place. So now it is visible. So suppose like this variable, it is local to main. If I try to access that variable here, suppose I'm going to access, I want to print this one value here, but it is not, it will give an error. Right, you cannot execute because A is only visible to this area. It is not visible here. So if we check, see error, A undeclared, first used in this function, right? So you can see the line number 24, line number here. That's where we have the error. Error A undeclared. A කියන එක declare කළා නැහැ කියලා කියන්නේ. ඒක declare කළා තියෙන්නේ අතන වෙන function එක. It is not visible to this function because it is local variable. Is it clear? Local and global. So this X, Y, and sub. So those are only visible to this function. These are only visible to this function, X, Y, sum. So A, B, sum, sub, those variables are visible only to main function. So that's why I have given them in different colors. Okay. So then, suppose if I introduce a new variable, okay. So if I change this program, right, instead of using this, I introduce result. Right. So because of this global, so usually if it is global, we define them in uppercase, right? It is not a rule, but usually we do that, but so you can just use lowercase as well, right? So I define this. So instead of using these, right? I just call this, and then I just call this function, and then after adding and after subtraction, so I am printing values. So let's remove this, not necessary. Then I'm using this way. And then I am using that way. Result. Right. And then I remove this return. Then I make them void. No return values. So here, what I have changed is I introduced new variable, global variable. Then when two values were added, results is assigned with these two values. Result කියන variable එකට දාගන්නවා මේ දෙක add කරලා. මේ දෙක අඩු කරද්දිත් result කියන variable එකට දාගන්නවා. It is global. It is global. All these functions can access, can see that. So now we change this program to something like this. Then we get result. Right. This way. When adding, we add these two values and put the result into this variable. Right. We call add. So then in add function is executed, x and y values would be added and put the result into this variable. And then we print that value. So we print the value of the result. Then we call this function and x minus y, the results would be added to result variable. That means to this variable. Then we print the value of the result. So here 10 and 12, AB 10 and 12. So the addition would be 22, subtraction would be minus 2. Right. So first we add these values and put the result. So here the answer would be 22. When we print at that point, so it will print 22. And then we call subtract, and then we give the same two values, and then the results would be put into result. So then this one would be replaced with the new value minus 2. Then we can print that value. See, the results would be displayed. Why is that? Right. So these functions, they don't return anything, but these functions, they assign the answer of this calculation into this global variable, right? When the function is called and then print, soon after that, if you print the value of that global variable, so this added value would be in the global variable. At this point, result is having value 22. So then we call this method. We send A and B, these values. So that means 10 and 12 into this function, right? 10 and 12. So then this calculation is done and the answer would be again assigned to global variable, same global variable. We are using same global variable, that variable, right? So now that variable is having the value -2. Is global variables rewritable? Yes, it is another variable, global variable. So we can replace the original value with another value, with a new value. So that's what we have done here. See? So usually to indicate that it is a global variable, so we use uppercase, right? So then actually when we see this part, so we know this could be a local variable. It is somewhere on top, right? මෙතන මේ results කියලා දැක්කම එකපාරටම ලොකු කෝඩ් එක සමහරට කන්ෆියුස් වෙන්න පුළුවන් මොකක්ද මේ කියලා. අයි අපි මේ මෙතන මේ ෆන්ක්ෂන් එක ඇතුලේ කොහොමවත් එහෙම එකක් නැහැ. But if it is in uppercase, we know that it could be global variables. Let's look at the top. There's a question. What is actually meant by void has no return? Void has no return, right? So if we have a return, so if we have, instead of void, so if we have int here, then that means we are giving, so we are giving the result of the execution of this function to the place where that function is called. The function is called here, right? So we are giving this answer to that place. So we are giving answer to that place, the result to that place. So that's what we call returning a value. Returning value means where function is called, so we giving the result to that place. So if a value is returned from a function call, so So then that value can be used. We can assign that value into something, right? Like our previous example here. So here, integer value is returned from this function. So that value is, right? So function is called here. This function returns an integer value. So that means this function, after calling this function, function would go to that function definition, and that function is executed. After the execution, it is coming with a value. Right? So suppose so I have seen some videos like people are catching fish in a river, right? So they go into the water. So they go inside water and then they catch fish by their bare hand, right? So when they come out from the water, they coming with a fish in their hands. So returning means something like this. They are coming with a value. So this function call, it is coming with a value. A function call කරාට පස්සේ function එකට ගිහිල්ලා function එක execute කරලා value එකක් එක්ක තමයි මෙයා එන්නේ. So we are taking that value into this variable. Right? But in this case, void means, so after calling the function, it will go here and execute, and then it is coming back without any value. So value එකක් අරගෙන නෙමෙයි මෙතෙන්ට එන්නේ. මේ add කියන එක call කරපු තැනට value එකක් අරන් එන්නේ නැහැ. Not returning any value. So that's the idea. Is it clear? Returning and not returning. So here it is not coming with the value, so we don't need anything. We don't have to use any other variables to assign that value because nothing is coming here. Right, okay. Okay. Here, void. So we don't have a question in this code, right? So in this case, like X and Y. So they are parameters or local variables, right? So they are formal parameters. So X and Y. So here X and Y, those are formal parameters. But they are local variables. So they are local to this function. from outside the function. Outside the function, X and Y cannot be accessed. They don't have power outside the function. Right. So there's a mistake here, I think. There's a mistake. Sorry. Thank you for showing that, right? So this is here. It has to be A and B. So there's a mistake here. A and B. Here, subtract A and B. Add AB. So here, AB, A comma B. Like this. I didn't even notice that. Like this, like this. Global variable should be defined at the top of the program before the first function, which is usually the main function. Otherwise, it will not be visible to the functions above the defined position. We experienced that, right? So if we define it somewhere in the middle, in between functions, so then the upper functions cannot see. This function cannot see that. Right? So that's why we have to declare them on top. So local variables are visible only to the block where it is defined. Even inside the block, it is not visible to the area above the position where it is defined. So that's another important part, right? Suppose if I am going to print the value of A here, printf value of A. It will give you an error, right? Because you cannot access a variable, local variable, before it is defined, right? So value is defined here. If you are going to access that variable here, that's not possible. Okay. Okay, scope rules are multiple variables with the same name cannot be declared in the same scope. So if we go to this exam, right? Like in the same village, there can't be two thugs with the same name. Village A එකේ ඉන්න විදිහට නෑ මරුසිරා කියලා තව එක්කෙනෙක්. එහෙම එක්කෙනෙක් ආවොත් එහෙම අරයා ගිහිල්ලා පොඩක් මේ කවුද මරුසිරා මමයි මරුසිරා කියලා මේ මොකක්hari සද්දයක් දායි. Because he is having the power in this area. So there shouldn't be another person with the same name within that table, right? Like, so, okay, so now program is okay. So if I define another variable here, it will give an error. Within the same block, there shouldn't be two variables with the same name, right? So give an error. See, redefinition of A. Again, A is defined, right? It is not possible. If we need another variable, we have to choose a different name, right? So multiple variables with the same name can be declared in different scope. Multiple variables with the same name can be declared in different scope. So we don't talk about that. Huh? In two blocks, we can have variables with the same name. So here in subtract and add, so we have local variables. So those are actual parameters there. So those are local variables or local parameters, whatever you call them. So those are defined. It can be done. It is possible. The scopes are independent from each other. Those variables are exist separately, independent from each other, right? If scopes are conflicting, the most local variables is visible. So that's what. What is that? What is that? It's another concept, right? So let's go to this example. Suppose in this village, like in village D, so we have another local Chandiya. So his name is Sotyupali. He's a different person from this person. Huh? He's a different person. So in right. So now, if you ask from someone in village T, so if you ask, so do you know Sotyupali? So then they would say, yes, we know. He's a dangerous man, and like he will explain. Actually, he's explaining this person, not the global one. If we are having two variables, right? So one is global and one is local with the same name, then local variable has the most power inside that block. In village T, the local Sotyupali has the power. People know him, right? Gamedi Sotyupali kiwa gama D gamedi. එතකොට මේ කට්ටිය දන්නේ මේ අපේ Sotyupali අයියා කියලා ඒ ගමේ එක. අර ග්ලෝබල් එක්කනා ගැන නෙවෙයි කට්ටිය උතේ කියන්නේ. ඒ global එක්කනාගේ බලය නැති වෙනවා ගමෙත් ඒ නමින්ම එක්කෙනෙක් හිටියොත්. So inside the village, like that, inside the region, if there's a person with the same name, then the power of that global ones is not considered actually. So he is the hero or the Chandiya in village D. So for example, like if we declare a variable with the same name here, right? Suppose if we do something like that. So again, only for this example, so I'm going to change, right? Okay, so I'm going to change this, right? Okay. So if we do this, what would be the answers? If we do this, what is the answer? We define a new variable here, int result. So we declare a new variable. So we have our global variable, but here we declare a local variable. So this variable is only local to this function. Right? In this function, when we say result, so it refers to this variable. When we say result, so that means this one. What would be the answer here? So previously it was 22 and minus 2. So with this new addition, what would be the result? Can anyone guess? So there are 0, minus 2, no output. Right. That means, so 0 or minus 2. Or no output. Any other guesses? Zero. Error. 22. 22. Error. No output. Anything else? So no output for this one, but this one minus 2. Anything else? The question is, what would be the answer? What would be the display output? What would be the output of these printf statements? Zero, minus 2, No outputs. Right, okay. So let's run that and see. 0 minus 2. That means 0 and minus 2. Why is that? Why this is 0? The reason is, so I'll go to this example, right? So we have global variable result. The value of this variable, so I will use this rectangle to write the value of this variable. This is result, right? And then we have a variable. So we have x and y here, x and y, and then we have another variable here, result. It is local to this. Right. So now let's go with the values. X, A is 10 and B is 12. Right. So when we call this add function, these values would be copied into x and y. Now x is 10, y is 12. Right. X is 10, y is 12. And then we add them and put the result into this variable, the local variable. We put the result into local variable, this one. We declare this variable and put the result there. So the value of this variable would be 22. So before that, at the beginning, I forgot to mention, the value of results would be 0. Why is that? Because on top here, it is declared and assigned the value 0. Initial value would be 0. Okay, so then we call this function add, and then after that we print the result. This result means this global variable. The value of that variable is 0. So that's why the first answer is, so it is printing this value. Is printing this value, right? It's printing through main function, so it is printing this value. See, okay, right? So now after that we call subtract function with the same two values. Subtract function, so those two values are taken into x and y, so that means 10 and 12. So then subtraction x minus y, that result would be added into global. So here results, that means no local variables there. It refers this one, this global variable. So the result would be added to global variable. Right? So the result would be -2. It would be added here, -2. Right? So now after that, again, the result is printed. So there we are printing this one. So the -2 would be. Right. So there's a question. Suppose if we don't assign 0 here, right? Then what would happen? Let's see. Again, it is 0, right? So the result, so like if we don't assign a value, right? If we don't assign a value, initially, if we don't assign a value, the initial value, whatever the value in this memory location would be printed. Right. It could be garbage value, or sometimes in some cases it would be 0. If we go to like in C, what the value is could be undefined, right? The variable initial value before assigning a value, it could have a garbage value. The previously assigned value, right? If program is executed 1 week ago, right? Sometimes that value would be still there in that memory location, right? So whatever the value there would be printed. So if we change, right? So if we change, if we change the order here, then if we call subtract method early, like before addition, so then results would be both would be -2. Why is that? Because in subtraction, it updates the value of the result. It updates the value of the result. The same value would be printed here. Same value would be printed. There's another question. Can we use A and B here? Of course, we can use A and B instead of X and Y. Because these two variables are different from A, B variables here. Because those are in two different areas, two different functions. Those are two independent variables. Again, if we use A and B here, those are another two different variables. So the question, what can we do for this one addition? Now the result is not displaying here. The reason is, so we have done something bad here because we are using global variable as well as with the same name local variable. So most simple thing that we can do, the simplest thing that we can do is removing the new, so new variable declaration here. Use the same variable here, already declared variable. Don't declare a new variable. See, now it will work. See, now it's working. Another way would be, right? So if we declare local variable, if we really want to do that, so then what we can do is you can return that value. The result is local to this one. So then this result has to be returned to the main function. Otherwise, this is not visible to the main function. You can return result. So then that value has to be taken here, right? Value ekut aragana දැන් එන්නේ. So that value can be printed. Or that value can be assigned to the result. That's also possible. The return value is assigned to this global variable. මෙතනදී results කියලා කිව්වම මේ access කරන්නේ මේ global variable. ඒ global variable එකට මෙතනින් එළියට එන return value එක assign කරන්න. So we are returning a value. Again, give the same result. Okay, so now I think the idea is clear. So here, for example, if there is a global variable on top of the program and a local variable inside a function with the same name, inside the function, local variable is visible and it covers the visibility of a global variable. Right? Inside this function, this variable covers the visibility of global variable of this. The function එක ඇතුලේ අපි print කරොත්, right? If we print inside the function, if we print, it will print this variable, not the global variable. Because this local variable covers the visibility of that global. Right? This would print, see, 22, the local variable. This value would be printed. So there's a question from Dinusha. In the calling, can't we use only function names except giving variable names? What do you mean? So when we call function without using AB, can we use 10 and 12? Is that a question? Like this? Yeah, it is possible. We can do that. We can do that, right? Do the same. You can directly give the values or you can use variables. So then the variable values would be given. So no problem. So actually today, let me check. Oh, okay. Right. So the example of the result, right? So here we talked about this example. So we have defined a new variable with the same name as the global variable. So then inside this function, results means that this result. And then inside this function, if we define result like in result, so that means not this result variable, this is a new variable. It's a new variable. Right. Right. So we don't have enough time to talk about recursion. So we have to postpone that for the next lecture. So can we have a lecture on 31st? Friday. No, not a lecture actually. So can we have a practical session on Friday? Or if we can't have that, so then I need a long session, maybe like 4 hours, like 2-hour session and then a break and then another 2-hour session to cover all the missing practicals. When can we do that? So next week, if we can do that on maybe Monday or Tuesday. So Monday afternoon, I can't because I have another lecture. So Monday or Tuesday. We don't have the vacation on 31st. So what do you mean? Like 31st, is it okay that I have? Oh, okay, 31st, yeah. So then let's do on 31st morning, right? It will be practical session. No? Practical session. I'm not going to discuss recursion. So if you want to do some practical sessions, some examples and things on mainly on functions. So how to use functions and so on. So I will do something. And then the first next exercise. So we couldn't upload, I couldn't upload an exercise on functions for 2 weeks, right? So now we are in a position to start that. So I will upload that exercise as well. Right, so then 31st, usual time, like 10 to 12, right? 2 hours would be enough. So I will do that. So, right, so that's all. Now it's the time. So I will upload the next, yeah. Lecture 9 is uploaded. Lecture 9 slides are uploaded. So you can check on recursion. Okay, so that's all. So we are going to meet on 31st, but if you are somehow, because of some reasons, if you cannot participate on that, have a nice week and a happy new year. For the next lecture, we are going to meet on meet in the new year, right? Next year, right? 22, right? So happy new year, and but before that, see you on Friday. Hope to see you on Friday. Right? Okay. Thank you, and see you soon.